yesterday I was told that I was on the spectrum and that I had high functioning autism, aka Aspergers, because I got diagnosed in the UK. They still use the Aspergers diagnosis. I know in America it's been phased out, and I don't think it'll be too long before Britain phases it out as well. But yeah, a year ago today I got diagnosed, and so I thought I'd make a little video about my first year of being aware that I was on the spectrum. It doesn't seem like a year ago, and I suppose that what most people are going to want to know is what's changed. Has anything changed? Has it changed for the better or for the good? Do you regret getting your diagnosis, or do you think it was the best thing you ever did? I still categorically say it's the best thing I ever did. It was such a game changer. Having that diagnosis and that validation that you're not weird, you're not abnormal, you have this neurological discrepancy that means your brain works differently to the majority of the population, but you are in a group of people that have this same diagnosis of autism, Aspergers, and that's still now a comfort to me when I find myself, when I'm conscious of the fact that I'm being different, or I'm being what I would have called before weird. It's a comfort to know that there's a reason behind that now. It's something that can be explained, that I can explain to people why I do things the way I do them, why I get stressed and I get anxious if things like routines change, or I'm in noisy environments, or I'm put into surprise situations where I've got to meet lots of people or go to somewhere I've never been to before. All of these things that I've discussed in all the videos I've done so far, it's all been a learning curve for me as well. It's all been understanding autism, understanding Aspergers, and understanding my Aspergers. Because there's no two people that have the same Aspergers, the same autism, but there are many similar traits that people have to varying degrees. And to get a diagnosis, you have to have those traits, and you have to meet the criteria for them to be enough of a problem or an issue in your life to get the diagnosis in the first place. So knowing was one of those life affirming moments. Everything that I'd done all of a sudden made sense. Everything that I'd struggled with, everything that I'd done different, the feeling that the world was always against me and I was always pulling in a different direction, all fell into place and made sense in an instant when I got that diagnosis. And I still advocate anyone out there who thinks they might be on the spectrum to get a diagnosis, because as I've said in previous videos, it won't change. I mean, I don't have to tell you, but there is no cure for autism. There is no medication, there is no therapy. All you can do is understand yourself better, and that will enable you to avoid some of the things, some of the triggers that make your autism cause you anxiety, and that has been the case for me. I have done a lot of soul searching, a lot of looking back in hindsight, and on a weekly basis, sometimes a daily basis, the little things that pop up in my head that go, that explains why I did this, that explains why I was like that explains when I was a kid I never liked doing this, and all these things start building up, and eventually you can start seeing them on the horizon, and you can try and detour them a little bit and swerve them. I think going head on into something blindly, like when you haven't got a diagnosis and you're putting yourself in situations that are going to be massive stress triggers, if you can't see them coming, you just walk into them like a brick wall. But when you get a diagnosis and you understand where they come from, you can sidestep them a little bit, and it hasn't made a positive impact on my life. The fact that I can now do that, and people around me, my partner, my family, they can make tiny little adjustments for me, but they make a massive difference to my life. And I think I would say, because it's a bit subjective, isn't it? But I'd say I've been a happier person in the last year. I wouldn't say, I've been a massively happier, but I think in myself I've been happier. Another, positive reason for getting a diagnosis. You're doing it for yourself at the end of the day. You're not getting a diagnosis for other people. You're doing it for yourself, and the benefits are going to be there for you. What else has? So yeah, there've been certain situations already this year that I've been able to manage better. Manage because I've got knowledge of my Aspergers. That's been a great tool to have, something that I've never been able to do before. And I think moving into next year, I think that'll only get better, and I think I'll get into new routines. So hopefully by the end of it all, my life will be a lot less stressful and anxious than it ever has been. I can't control everything, and there are some things that will always cause massive anxiety, or even meltdowns. I've only really had 2 meltdowns this year, and the second one I saw coming, and instead of fighting it and resisting it, I went with it. And it just happened to be when I was at work, and I literally dropped everything and I walked out the building and I disappeared for 2 hours, and it was what I needed to do, where before I wouldn't have known what to do. I needed to get out that environment. I needed to calm down. I needed to just have that time just to get over it, because in my videos where I've spoken about meltdowns, they're a trickle effect, a drip, and your glass fills up and eventually it overflows, and that's when you have your meltdown. And I knew it was coming, and I knew it had begun. One thing had happened, one tiny thing, and it was just that one tiny thing too much, and I just got overwhelmed and flooded with massive anxiety and stress. And I knew what it was. Well, I've never known what that was before, and I took myself out of the situation, and when I come back, I explained what I'd done, I explained why I did it, I explained why I needed to do it, and nothing was said. It was like, okay, that's fair enough. So going forward, hopefully I can reduce the stress and anxiety, and I will have less of them, but they don't go away for forever. There will be times, stressful times, when little things have a big impact on me, and other people don't see them because they're like out of context, and they're small tiny things. and we've spoken about that before, about they're not neurotypical things, they're not neurotypical stresses, which is why neurotypical people still and will always struggle to understand autism, because they've never experienced those things to be able to put them into context and, you know, have empathy and sympathy, which is quite ironic, because that's one thing that people on the spectrum don't have a lot of. What else? I went to my local health authority and saw my local GP, because I thought, well, now I'd got a diagnosis, I'd record it with my GP and I would try and get any help that was out there. And I was particularly looking to try and get some therapy for handling stress and anxiety better. And basically my doctor and my local health authority told me to go away. I wasn't high priority because I was high functioning. They wouldn't refer me to counsellors, therapists to try and help with that, and I did feel a little bit like that was kicking me when I was down a little bit. I just found out, you know, I'd gone all my life not taking anything out of the health system, the NHS, and the only time I went there after, you know, 48 years to try and get some help for my autism, they told me, no, basically you've got on with your life and you're doing all right. There are other people that have got it worse than you, and, you know, that's where our priorities lie. Which is kind of double-edged for me, isn't it? Like I've struggled all my life to deal with it, successfully and unsuccessfully, and now when I get diagnosed and find out what I've got, I can't get any help anyway. I mean, I'm going to have to go down the private route, and I'm going to have to pay for my own therapy if that becomes an issue moving forward. I do have anxiety based on I overthink things. It's a common trait amongst people with autism and Aspergers. You know, I ruminate on problems and issues, and basically I make problems that aren't there, and I need a release mechanism. I need to know how to handle that better, because I'm just layering stress on stress on stress on stress, and when that gets high enough, that's a meltdown. I wanted to try and see whether there was anything out there that could help me reduce the amount of stressful things that I was worried about. But I don't know. There might not be any help out there, but I know there are discussion groups and therapists and group therapies with people with autism and Asperger's. I thought that might have given me some help, but, you know, I shut the door in my face on that one, which was a bit hurtful, but, you know, I've got over that now. You know, that's why I got a private diagnosis anyway, because I wouldn't have been prioritised on the NHS. I paid into it all my working life, and then when I did need it, no thank you, you know, you're not high priority, but whatever. So that's just something I won't be pursuing anymore. With regards to the channel, you know, I don't know. I think I'll carry on making videos. I am exhausting the list of categories and subjects I think I can talk about. I will, if something comes up, make a video about it. To me, the videos were all about, they were my own kind of therapy in a way, but they were me talking about myself. They were me analysing myself, trying to understand myself, and in the process of that, giving other people the chance to have a glimpse into what it's like to have autism and Aspergers, for people who know me and even my family to watch these videos to get an understanding, because it's very difficult to articulate to people in a social setting, and that's why it's easier to talk on my own and to talk in a video where people can listen to it, and I've been able to speak more frankly and openly and be more fluent and get across my point better. So thank you all for watching, and until next time.